What's up, everyone? Welcome back to C&D Sports. The World Series is now over. The Atlanta Braves are your 2021 World Series champions. Congratulations to them, and what a World Series this was.
Yeah, two teams we didn't expect to go the distance. At least they went up against some strong teams and they pulled up. They never slowed down, and it was a battle of offense and pitching.
Yeah, this was probably the most complete World Series I've seen, where there was a little bit of everything. You had your strong pitching games like games 3 and 4. You had your strong offensive games like game 5. You had stars show up. Altuve had his moments, Correa had his moments, Freeman had his moments. Then you had your unlikely heroes like Travis d'Arnaud, Dansby Swanson, Jose Siri on Houston's side. You had your veterans perform, like Zach Greinke had his moments, even with the bat too, with a big pinch hit a big pinch hit in Game 5. Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Freddie Freeman, again, they all showed up. And then the young talent. This was really a World Series for a lot of young talent, like Yordan Alvarez, who's already established himself, but he was a guy that the World Series, he wasn't strong, but in the postseason coming into it, he was strong, and he was always a threat. Atlanta did a good job at minimizing his bat. Kyle Tucker was another guy that was solid. And then on Atlanta's side, Max Fried and Ian Anderson were probably the two biggest reasons why they're in the position they are, because they pitched so well.
And Max Fried was probably the best pitcher in these playoffs.
His Game 2 performance in this World Series wasn't great, but Houston's also the team that hits left-handed pitchers the best, but you can't say anything bad about going 6 innings and only giving up 4 hits with no walks in a deciding Game 6. So Max Fried really was. Jorge Soler might have won the overall. He might have won the World Series MVP. Eddie Rosario got the NLCS MVP, but if we're talking just a playoff MVP for Atlanta, you'd have to give it to Max Fried because he just showed up in such big moments.
Yep.
Now we're going to go in because I think this Atlanta Braves team is just so interesting the way it was built, and I kind of want to break down just how unique this team actually was, as they really did everything from offseason and trade deadline acquisitions to just building guys up in the grassroots way. So we'll start off with obviously their grassroots players, and what better place to start off than Mr. Atlanta Brave himself, Freddie Freeman. Drafted by them in 2007, made his debut in 2011. He's really been Mr. Atlanta Brave, and what a great year to do so in the year that they honored Hank Aaron, who is probably Mr. All-Time Brave. Freddie Freeman obviously got his MVP last year, but you always knew he wanted this. And going into free agency this year, I think it'll make it a lot better in terms of negotiating with him on an extension now that they have won a championship. And you just feel good for this guy. He really was the heart and soul of this team, including in Game 6. He had that massive home run to really add insurance to it, and
That's where the game ended.
Exactly. And then you have Austin Reilly. You start to get these guys that are newer draft picks here and newer signings. Austin Reilly, who was, if it wasn't Max Fried for an overall playoff MVP for them, it would have been Austin Reilly, because he showed up every series. In the World Series, he was just one of the hottest hitters there. It seemed like every at-bat, he was a threat to lace a double up the line. So
it's really annoying.
Yeah, he's just a really pesky hitter. He just knows how to hit. They drafted him in 2015. Ozzie Albies, who again, just like Austin Reilly, was a pesky hitter, especially in Game 6. He was really the one that he would just get up to the plate, and you would just expect him to lace one into right center field. So Ozzie Albies, he was signed out of Curacao in 2013. Ian Anderson, I remember watching that draft and thinking, wow, Atlanta got someone really good. And sure enough, Ian Anderson threw 5 no-hit innings in his outing in the World Series right here, and he was solid all through the playoffs as well, and he's really going to be someone with Max Fried that they can really build this rotation around. Not to mention Mike Soroka is going to be coming back, and we'll talk about him in a few minutes here. And then, of course, Ronald Acuna, who obviously Ronald Acuna didn't play this playoffs. He went down before the All-Star break with the torn ACL.
And when arguably your best player goes out, not much is expected.
And it wasn't even just he's their best player. He was one of the league's best players. Mm-hmm. He was, in my opinion, the front runner for NL MVP before he went down. And he's really going to be a guy that when all is said and done, Freddie Freeman's career, it's in the back end now. Obviously, he's still got plenty of time left. He's got another big contract he's expected to get. But his contract, he'll kind of be going towards the end of his career when Ronald Acuna is expected to get his big deal and when the Braves are looking to bring him back. And he's really expected to take the torch from Freddie Freeman. But with Ronald Acuna going down, it leads into our next part here, and that is their offseason and trade deadline acquisitions. Is when their outfield took a lot of hits. Acuna went down. Marcell Ozuna went down injured, and then obviously he was cut from the team for domestic violence allegations. So they were really in a bind. And Alex Anthopoulos, credit to him, the guy knows how to work a trade deadline. He did it in Toronto, and he did it again here. He picked up the World Series MVP in Jorge Soler, and all they had to give up was Casey Kalich to get him, who is an unremarkable prospect. No disrespect to Casey Kalich, but Jorge Soler certainly performed better than that return. Eddie Rosario, who was your NLCS MVP, they picked him up for Pablo Sandoval, who was then shortly cut by Cleveland after they acquired him. So again, Alex Anthopoulos making the right moves. Jock Peterson, it was Jocktober. The man with the mullet, the man with the pearls, he showed up with pinch hit home run after pinch hit home run. They acquired him for a first base prospect in Bryce Ball, who, again, Jock Peterson outperformed that return. And then Adam Duvall, who they acquired him for probably the most notable prospect in Alex Jackson, who had underperformed. Alex Jackson was a guy that Atlanta expected a bit more out of. They sent him to Miami, got Duvall. He led the National League in home runs and RBIs this regular season, so already performing, and he came in and he was still raking in the postseason as well. And then you look at their offseason acquisitions. Charlie Morton this year, coming off of what was a stellar performance and almost had a World Series last year with Tampa Bay. He goes to Atlanta, signs a 1-year contract, and before he went down, Max Fried was performing the best, but Charlie Morton was still the best pitcher on that rotation. Obviously, fracturing his leg in Game 1 of the World Series wasn't ideal, but they found a way to win without him, and he certainly brought them to that stage, and they wouldn't be there without Charlie Morton. And then the anchor of that bullpen, and Will Smith, is that kind of that quad in the back there with Jackson, Matzik, Minter, and Will Smith is really what also solidified this World Series for them. And Will Smith, he signed a big deal before the 2020 season. And again, he's a guy that is going to continue to be their closer pretty much from here on out, unless he does something to warrant losing that job. But they do a good job in the offseason and the trade deadline. And they also do a good job at picking up prospects. As you look at Dansby Swanson, he was acquired in 2015 for Shelby Miller. I mean, no rocket scientist here, but that's a good trade to get your everyday shortstop here, despite his defensive errors that he made in the World Series. Dansby Swanson is an everyday shortstop on any team. And Max Fried, they picked up from San Diego, who we've said he was their best pitcher, arguably their best player in this postseason. They picked him up in 2014 for Justin Upton. Justin Upton, he's not playing in San Diego anymore. He's off with the Angels right now. So obviously they've won trades that way as well. And then they just had some luck with guys coming out of nowhere. AJ Minter's a guy who they always had, but he was a guy that really up and down. You never knew if he was going to be a regular cog in that bullpen. And this year he was just fantastic. The guy that they went to get 2, even 3 innings sometimes. He stepped up significantly this year. There was still some doubt even last year if he was going to be there. There was also doubt if Tyler Matzik was going to be there. This was a guy who, until last season, this guy was cut from the Rockies in 2016 and had not played Major League Baseball until 2020. So he was out of the game for a long time. He got the yips with Colorado, which guys do, but credit to him, he bounced back. And Tyler Matzik, Will Smith will always be the anchor of this bullpen as the closer, but Tyler Matzik was the heart and soul of this bullpen. He was a guy that you could rely on in any situation there. Really the guy that he came in close situations too, ended up picking up a win in Game 4 Tyler Matzik is a guy that they really kind of found a diamond in the rough here. And obviously, he has had struggles in the past, as obviously you don't want to guarantee that he's going to pitch the same this year. But he's a guy that really you've got a lot of hope for that bullpen in the future. And moving forward, I don't see a reason why I can't see Freddie Freeman not signing back here. Ronald Acuna will be back at some point next year. Mike Soroka will be back in the rotation at some point this year, or at some point next year, obviously. So I don't really see why this team couldn't run it back, because they did all this without Acuna. They did all this without Soroka. And if they lose some guys from the outfield, obviously their outfield performed well. Obviously, they're probably not going to ride all four of them with Ronald Acuna coming back. But even if they can keep half of that outfield together, this team is still in a great spot to continue all the success that they had this year. And overall, it was just an interesting team that was probably the biggest underdog at only 88 wins coming into the playoffs. And
one of the biggest all time.
One of the biggest all time. They were tied for fourth with the 2014 San Francisco Giants there. So, yeah, it just shows that you just got to get into the playoffs. And, you know, the MLB playoffs especially is so unpredictable. And the World Series is such a hard and difficult trophy to predict and to win. So, obviously, just a great end to what was a great MLB season.
So you mentioned Atlanta, and if they lose some pieces, they've obviously shown that they can develop their players and they can bring in players if needed. So I don't think we should count this team out for the next few seasons, as they'll remain a contender. But then let's shout out Houston real quick, as they took down a fringe powerhouse in the Chicago White Sox.
Yep.
Then they go on to take out Boston, who took out the powerhouse in the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, I don't know what's to expect of them in the coming years. Correa may be on the outs. But it was a good run, maybe final run for them with their veteran core. So shout out to them real quick.
You have to feel for a guy like Dusty Baker. You really want that guy to have his moment. Obviously, he has the most all-time wins without winning a World Series. So, yeah. Obviously, Houston played well. They were arguably the best offense in all of baseball. But, again, Atlanta was a good team too. And
the better team.
The better team in this case won the World Series, and that's what you always want to see. So with that, that'll do it for our World Series recap, Atlanta Braves championship video here. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, give it a like down below. Subscribe so you don't miss any of our other uploads. We'll have some off-season content coming out now that the MLB is moving into its off-season, so subscribe to stay tuned for that. Comment down below what your thoughts on the World Series were, what your thoughts on the playoffs were. We want to hear what you think in the comments below. And with that, we'll see you in the next video. Peace.